Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Western Racing News, Episode 1. I'm James Jungquist. Obviously, I look like the record with Rainmaker YYC. And that beautiful smiling face without a beard for once is Mr. Manitoba Trey Colebeck. Found himself a little extra time. Thanks for starting this with me, Trey.
Oh, always, man. Always try to, it's good to get the Western racing, some of my favorite racing to watch, right, man? It's the best.
It really is. It's something that I think is not looked at enough. And you see some of our horses go other places and race out east, and they race in a lot of the top classes. Whether it be Travis Cullen, a good friend of the show, a good friend of ours, picking some off and doing well, or going elsewhere. So to shine the spotlight on here, maybe we'll increase some value for some sales going forward as well.
Oh, that anything to help the sport, right, man?
Yeah. We had a great season at Century Downs this year. I got to commentate a little bit there, and going forward, I'm not really sure what my duties will be at Century Mile. I'm kind of tiptoeing with getting back in the bike a little bit. Watching some of the racing obviously has made me miss that, but in my free time, I thought me and you could pick up some of this space, and like I said, you had your free time. Uh, Trey, is there anything on your mind that you'd like to kick the show off with, or any races or horses that from the West that you would like to shine a little bit of a spotlight on?
Not nothing particular right now, man. I'll be completely honest. With my time off, I've kind of taken a little week break from watching too much racing. So this was going to try to get me kickstarted back into it. There's nothing too much on my mind. Here in Manitoba, we had a big super stake Saturday, which is always excited when there's multiple stake races on a card, right? So maybe not a horse. Maybe one guy I could talk about is our top trainer right now in Manitoba is Matthew Howlett. I think he's only like 20 years old, and he's leading all trainers with 15 wins in Manitoba, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome to see that Matt's taken a few steps forward in his career. He was out here for a little bit. His father Don, one of my favorite people, I got to know him fairly well, so it's great to hear that Matt's doing well. A name people know out here that's usually a top trainer out there is Trevor Williams, but a little bit of a struggle from Trevor this year, which isn't like him.
I think he just didn't have the same level of barn out here. I think he left most of his horses with Travis out in Alberta, is from my understanding, and then would only bring a couple out here for the stakes and here this or that. So I think it's kind of going according to his plan, but it does look a little weird on the stat sheet.
Yeah, it does. And we'll continue. We'll move out a little bit west. We'll come from Manitoba, jump out to Alberta then. And uh, Trevor does have quite a few horses out here with Travis Ellis and Travis here at Track on Two. We're racing here now. We have a few stakes coming up this week, and we got some 2 year olds going. And some of the 2 year old superstars aren't really going this weekend. So we'll see some of the other ones going, which is kind of nice to look forward to. Are there any 2 year olds here that you've noticed that have kind of piqued your interest? Like I said, you've been off like the last week or so, but before then, did you get to see any of our top 2 year olds really go? Um, I'm just signing into my into my Standardbred Canada. I apologize.
That's what I was
Um,
doing too. So it's all good.
I
Um,
don't I don't want to get this Colt's name wrong because I've called him a filly so much, and he's really impressed me lately. Even his last start after a bit of a bobble, um, Shelly Arsenault trains him. Surge has been doing the driving on him. Mama's work of art there.
mhm.
Shelly, I got it right for you, and I know he's a Colt. This little Colt's done everything right, and he's just looking for someone to kind of race along with him. He had a little bit of bad luck with gate changes, and he's been getting a little hot behind the gate, but he looked like he was going to be the best. Went off at 1-5, but a name that we've gotten to know quite a bit qualified a new one. Scott McGinn and GT's Jukebox Jack last week. Trey looked amazing, buddy, and I think this Colt could be a player. Are there any of the 2 year olds that you can think of that you really like?
Yeah, kind of on the Philly side, a couple of Nathan Sobeys I kind of liked early on. They haven't quite done maybe hit the expectation, but Captain's Hideaway was one I was high on earlier, for sure. His other one, You Were the Rock in My Roll. There's a couple of Sobeys that I really liked, and also I just saw it here, Jamie Gray's Custard Dulce. That one I
Mhm.
really liked too on the Philly side.
Watching her take a few steps forward last weekend, her last stake win, While we were doing the show, I had said, I think these fillies will have to go 54 to win this, and she went in 54 flat. And Derek Wilson said he thought I was insane. I said, man, these are some nice fillies, and she really took a step forward to kind of say, I'm the best in here, and it was a really impressive race from her. Nathan's filly raced fantastic, and he owns and trains her all himself. So if she's second best all year, I'm sure he won't cry his eyes out either.
No, and one thing I'm liking, just looking real quick at the entries, the longest shot on the board in some of these 2-year-old races are only like 6-1. So you know what I mean? It's a pretty competitive race, right? When the odds makers can't go any higher than 6-1, there's no double digit odds on these 2-year-olds. Excuse me. So I mean, it should be pretty even money around the board. And like we saw a couple weeks ago, right? Like you said with Mama's work of art, all it takes is another horse to break in front of you or do something silly, right? And you go from first to fifth. So
Yeah, it's quite the once you get in with the 2-year-olds, one can make a mistake and just kind of pull you out. Or we saw Brandon Campbell with Gray Horizon not a few starts back, where he ended up hooking wheels at 3-5 with his entry mate, and Dave Kelly was able to jump on that one with a Gray trained entry to go ahead and win that race. So with the 2-year-olds, it's always a wide open race.
no doubt, man. No doubt. No, I didn't even. Again, I took the week off here, so I didn't even. I forgot about all these 2-year-old stake races until just now. So it's good to see the stake race is still rolling on in Alberta.
Well, and it's good to see them give some of the money and a little bit of the stake race money to track on too.
Hmm.
Kurt and the boys have been putting in a lot of work here. I'm not going to say the track is perfect, but it's the best I've seen it here ever. So, you know what? It's not about perfection; it's about progression. And if they can keep progressing this way, the track here at Track On Two is going to be very nice within the next year or two. I think.
That's perfect, man. Like I think the 3-track system in Alberta is perfect, right? You got the Friday, Saturday at Century Downs, and then when the season ends, go up to Edmonton. But then you still have that Track On 2 option just for I don't want to say lower class, but the leftovers a little bit during the year, and then this little lull right in between the two Century tracks. It's great to have the 3 tracks. I would love to have more tracks in Manitoba, man. Are you kidding me?
You know what? If we could get the horse population up and have more tracks everywhere, it just
Hmm.
that makes better racing, and it's one of the things that really does help the product. It just adds to the breeding and everything else. I mean, it's last year the sale, the prices were just so high because I mean, if there's a few things, it makes them more valuable, right? So
Hmm.
hopefully, hopefully more horses can free up some space, so maybe guys like us can find a cheap baby one day.
Maybe.
Oh man, so we were going to talk about a few other tracks, and we do have them on our list for later on in the year. Running Aces is just they have one more weekend left in the states, so I think a weekend or a season wrap up after this week will be good with them, Trey.
Hmm.
Um, we've got California, their stabling's open, but man, they don't start till December this year. And our good friends out in British Columbia get started this weekend. Have you had a chance to look at their entries out there at all, or see any names that are there, or any names that don't seem to be showing up this year?
No, I haven't looked too much, man. Fraser, or low key, Fraser might actually be my favorite track just because it starts so late, Manitoba time. It's the
Yeah.
perfect track when you're just in bed and you've lost all your money at all the other tracks, and it's your last saving grace, right? And I think my biggest hit ever came from Fraser, but they got rid of their pick 5, which kind of disappoints me, but that's okay. Um,
I
name,
just I'm gonna loop back on one thing real quick, just about our friends at Track On Two. I missed a pick three the other day that it was a 4-1 horse, a medium long shot and chalk. It paid $1,200 for a dollar ticket. Like I'm sure that maybe it was the pool, but still, like for Track On Two, that's an impressive payout. I was actually I was glad to see that.
Yeah, that's always good to see those big ones. No, one name just on the opening, I mean, on Friday, on Thursday night, Grace C goes back to BC. That'd be good to see her back there in
Mhm.
the Philly Mare Preferred. I liked kind of how she was doing in Alberta, but other than that, I don't see anything too crazy right now.
No, and I think the main thing to notice about the entries, especially for Thursday, is no Brandon Campbell, no Kelly Hort.
Right.
I think you might see them stay here for this year just because of the situation they're in BC with the shorter meet this year. I
Mhm.
don't know if you're going to see some of the bigger names out there, and that might give some of the guys that are also friends of our show, like Tyson Jacoby, a chance to take a step forward out there without Brandon showing up. I know Phil Giesbrick's all over the sheet out there,
Yeah.
but somebody's got to go. And if you've been paying attention, there was a fantastic article about Tyson up online the other day.
No, that's completely true, and I mean, I was amazed enough that those guys make the trip, like Campbell making the trip back and forth every week to begin with. Like that can't, that can't be completely easy doing a flight like that and only a few hours. I don't. What's the flight from Calgary or Edmonton to there anyway? A couple hours?
No, it's not too bad. It's
No, not
about
too bad.
an hour and 20.
Yeah, still
So
jet.
it's
Yeah, jet lag. I get amazed that baseball players can fly out every day. You know what I mean? Play 3 games, fly out and play a game that day. It's not easy on the body, but um, no, it's good to see that it could give some of the guys, these other guys, a good opportunity. Like you said, Phil's got an opportunity. I mean, he's having a great time and being in the bike and what he did in the Western Driving Championship and stuff. So I'm glad to see he's getting some more looks out there too.
absolutely, man. So I kind of ran this question past you before we started because we're getting to our questions and comments section, and I'm hoping some of the people watching will feel free to answer and give your opinions on this because there's going to be quite a few. Through watching the races, commentating and stuff, you notice horses change barns. Some of them take off. Some of them do this or that. And there's accusations. Geez, this horse went on because blah. Now, do you think? And this is one that I enjoyed your answer when you gave it to me before. But if baking soda was programmed like Lasix, do you think that would be a positive or a negative for the gamblers in our sport?
See, that's such a tough one to answer because I'll be honest, like, because like what I said before was I don't really ever pay attention to that stuff because
Mhm.
I'll be honest, like I'm just a degenerate gambler. Like I will see it's tough because when you're watching football, we'll talk. We'll just throw this. We'll put this in there. When I found out McCaffrey was out on Monday against when he was for the 49ers, did that really make much of a difference of my bet? No. And sometimes in horse racing, if a horse goes to a certain barn, it doesn't, or a certain driver, it doesn't change, but sometimes it does, right? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So
Yeah.
it's a real tough question to answer. I think maybe more the old school betters might listen to that more, but
Mhm.
me personally, I don't know.
It's one I flip flop back and forth on quite a bit because I think, like you said, an older gambler might know exactly what's going on or what something like the S or for what baking soda would mean.
Mm-hmm.
I think the more I think about it now, and like I said, I've flip flopped on this a lot. You might just be opening yourself up for something that's needless, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think baking soda is much more healthy for a horse compared to the alternatives that some people use. Um, so the alternatives can be hard on guts and a few other digestive systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just it's something where I'm not sure if the transparency would be good or not. I guess is where I'm going with that.
And actually expand on this a little bit. I always wonder this too. Who makes the rules, right? Is
Mm.
it the government? Is it just these government people who know nothing about horse racing? How much collaboration is there?
Yes.
Because the whole conversation, I'll even go again, I like my compare other sports here. The UFC in MMA, they just now allowed what's called the 12-6 elbow to go straight down, which had been banned. And the only reason it was banned was because the politicians, when they came in there trying to legalize MMA fighting, they saw those old karate videos of guys breaking bricks, right?
Yeah.
With that. But MMA fighters are like, yeah, but what's legal, this sideways elbow, is 10 times more dangerous. Right, like
Absolutely.
so it was because people who aren't horse like or aren't MMA fans were making the rules, right? Like so I wonder that too when it all a politician needs to hear is oh this is bad or this is that and they don't actually know. Now if there's a good collaboration, right? You can't just let the horse people get away and make all the rules either. There has
Hmm.
to be the oversight. But I mean who stops the NFL from changing their rules every 2 years?
No,
Right? Like, so I don't know.
yeah, HRA the HRA body is made up, and I'm not exactly sure how the count is, but it's a lot of the people that do make decisions come from the public sector.
Yeah,
So that's sometimes when you see something, you're like, well, I'm not sure if that makes 100% sense.
right.
It's because sometimes you have to trying to break it down and explain it to somebody that doesn't come from racing sometimes is very tough. And you know what? The good part of that is sometimes what we're trying to explain to them is wrong, right? And
Mhm.
it's good to have the fresh eyes on some of the subjects we're having. So
Oh, 100, yeah, 100%, man. It's like, and sometimes it's just people are hardwired a certain way because again, you hear the term drugs or PEDs, you know what I mean, and then you have this whole thing now. Now it's not. It's one thing when Barry Bonds did it. Who cares, right? He's doing it himself. But
yeah.
when you have a guy or a person potentially putting these into a to an animal, right? It creates this whole other potential issue, and people I think get focused on that too much.
Yeah, I think there's actually some substances that we can't use now that are so far out. Like antihistamines are something that I wish you could use within 24 hours on a horse.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's that big a deal. It's just there's a such a tiny amount of amphetamine in it that it kind of messes with the test. So we're not allowed to use it. But just small things like that, I think they kind of go overboard a bit on. But that's because if you give an inch, horsemen are known to take a mile.
Oh, I wholeheartedly understand that. And again, the whole thing I'm thinking of is I can't remember the name, and I'm going again different sport, but the NFL has a pretty strict policy against marijuana,
Mhm.
right? Where it's probably legal in I don't know a bunch of states, right? It's legal in Canada, and they still have a pretty firm policy against that. Where players have been arguing, well, man, we just put our body on the line for 3 hours. I just want to get high. You know what I mean? Like it would
Yeah.
help me. It would make me be better for next week, right? And players have retired over it. And it's that whole thing. You think it's just one negative connotation on it. Like weed's been this devil drug, right, for
Mhm.
decades, and now it's hard to overcome that and stuff. And same thing with horse racing, right? Like, man, it's just one, and I don't think it helps. I don't think the whole Baffert thing helps either,
No.
right? And how much that's been in the news, and that's the only time horse racing's in the news, right? Is that.
Yeah, it's kind of like NFL players. It's mostly when they do something wrong. I mean, the Tariq Hill was all over the news the other day,
Right.
and I mean, I wanted to be on his side, but just roll your window down, man. And I mean, that's horsemen have to be like that too. Like I want we're all on the same side. Let's just roll our window down and get along.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
100%, man.
All right. Well, Trey, we're at 18 minutes here, man, and I appreciate your time today. I think we can kind of wrap it up today. Um, I just want to thank everybody that's listened this long for listening today. We're going to be back next week. We'll have a little bit more of a stronger format for you.
Mhm.
We'll talk a little bit more race and we'll have a more. But if you've liked what you've heard, and you know what, we're going to set it up for super chats and stuff. Trey, I appreciate me and you are kind of both doing this gratis or free in English, if you will, for right now. So please like and subscribe, everybody, so we can monetize this and charge you money because, damn it, we're entertaining.
If this was only 20 minutes, you know what I mean? Just give us a full hour show and see what we can do.
Exactly. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next Wednesday.